Okay, so committee's probably going to be 3 to 5 minutes late. I've got actually like 10 clips from the last time Randy was in Parliament. So I'm not actually sure which one is the most juicy. Why is my... Why is my Andy... Okay, I'm not sure. Anyway. I don't know if you guys can see this. Something's wrong with like my stream. I hope you guys are seeing this. Yeah, you guys are seeing this. Okay, perfect. Let's watch this.
Mr. Chair, Minister, you...
Oh, sorry, I gotta fix my audio.
You were pocketing money from the lobbying firm Navis.
That is false.
Owned by your...
That is not true, Mr. Cooper.
It's in your public disclosures.
That is not true.
Who paid you? So you have received not 1 cent from Navis Group. Is that correct?
You said that I was pocketing money, which is not true.
Did you receive money from the Navis Group?
I have not made any income. I've not worked for any client since being elected. So you stated a falsehood.
How much money have you received from the Navis Group since you were appointed to cabinet?
I have received funds into my business that were cleared through the ethics commissioner. That happened while I was a private citizen. All of that information, all of those activities were while I was a private citizen. When I transitioned from being a private citizen to a public citizen, I spoke numerous times to the team of the ethics commission, and so I received those payments are in the those funds are in the disclosure. And if you want to know how much money I made as a private citizen, I direct you to the commissioner of ethics.
I ask you then to just answer the question: how much money were you paid by Navis Group? How much?
That
Since
information is with the conflict of interest, and I have not made any funds. Now, Mr. Chair, Mr. Cooper is trying to indicate that somehow I had only one client or only one relationship while I was private consultant.
Minister, since you won't answer the question.
I know, he literally won't answer the question.
Mr. Cooper, Standing Order 11.2 dictates that members keep their questions relevant to the matter, which the committee is reviewing. We're reviewing the supplementary estimates 2023.
Okay, so that's one clip. You can see that he just doesn't want to answer that. Committee's still not started yet. Let's watch this one. This is at a different committee.
So, Mr. Barrett, I do not know the name of that person, as I stated in my opening statements. And before at committee, I have no relationship, no operational role with GHI. I do not know that person in question. That person is not me.
What's your percentage stake in the company?
As has been disclosed in my disclosure to the Commission of Ethics, it is 50% stake in GHI that is held in my holding company.
Who are the partners at the company?
I do not know. It is Mr. Anderson, to my knowledge, is the only administrator of that company. So, I have no connection other than holding the shares to that company, Mr. Barrett.
Holding half of the shares.
Yeah, exactly.
Half of the shares are in my numbered company, as disclosed to the Commissioner of Ethics.
Do you know who holds the balance of the shares?
When I was involved, the last time I looked, it was Mr. Anderson.
So it's your understanding that you and
50-50 share
Randy Boissonnault and Mr. Anderson are 50-50 partners in the company?
That is not correct. The shares are held by 2256956 Alberta Limited.
Who owns that numbered company?
Yeah, so you won't...
Cute.
It's not cute, Mr. Barrett.
There's a question about this other Randy that's been reported. I know the contention, sir, is that you'd like for this to be something that the opposition has created, but this is reported in the media, and the media has uncovered a number of things, including text message exchanges with someone who's named by one of your partners.
Okay, so these are the texts that I was talking about. This is where he says, this isn't Randy. I'm not that Randy. It's Randeep or somebody else. I don't know. But we confirmed that this is Randy.
And they refer to Randy. And no last name of that Randy is available. The only Randy we know that's involved with the company is a minister in the Trudeau government. Who were the partners in that company in 2022?
I do not have that information, Mr. Barrett, but let me correct the record, Mr. Chair. To your question, I'll go through you, Mr. Chair. I am not the person in those texts. Mr. Anderson confirmed that it's not me. And I have a quote from the article that you're talking about, Mr. Barrett, which is from the Gowie Group, which says, we have had no direct...
We confirmed that's him. We confirmed that. Okay, committee's still not started. We'll keep watching this.
...communication with Mr. Boissonnault at any point in our dealings with Stephen and the companies, because I have had no active role in GHI since I was elected in 2021.
Okay. You said publicly you didn't have anything to do with Stephen Anderson's business deals on behalf of your PPE company, Global Health Imports. Is that right?
I have had no active role in GHI since I was elected. And Mr. Barrett, you said yourself in your question this morning, Mr. Chair, may I answer?
Chair, I gave.
Hang on a sec.
So let's stop the clock. Okay.
Go ahead. I'm going to ask Mr. Barrett to continue. He has another question. Minister,
But Chair,
for an answer.
but
go ahead.
On the way the meeting's going to run, I gave Mr. Boissonnault more than twice the amount of time to respond to both of my previous questions than I spent in asking the questions. So if I have a short question and the minister wants to run the clock, that's obviously not going to demonstrate fairness.
I think I made that pretty clear at the top of the meeting, Mr. Barrett, that my expectation today is that as members ask questions, an equal amount of time is going to be given for those responses, Minister, and I ask that all members respect that. I'm not going to be the timekeeper here, other than the 6 minutes, but if I see that a member is going a little bit off in terms of time, then I will intervene. Mr. Barrett,
how much time?
You got 3 minutes and 16 seconds. Go ahead.
Related to deals with the Gowie Group, you didn't have anything to do with the alleged wire fraud?
Mr. Barrett, I have been very clear that I've had no operational dealings with GHI since I was elected, and you, sir, indicated off the start that the Randy in the article was not me.
So that company alleges that you were involved. Are they telling the truth?
That company is not, they're not correct, because I've had no correspondence from them, and Mr. Anderson indicates very clearly in this morning's article that Randy is not me.
So we have text messages implicating you.
Sorry, I was just checking if the committee's still live. I think they're probably going to start on the 45 mark, so in 7 minutes.
In this wire fraud, and it was carried out by your business partner to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And one of them reads, and I quote, "What is going on? I just received this from Randy. It's 1314 MST and 1514 EST. It literally takes 10 seconds to complete a transfer. I'm telling you, we are not allocating like this. Please reach out and see what the reason is now. You assured me this was done this morning, first thing, and allowed you to hold this stock today. It's midday and nothing is completed. I'm calling Felix to discuss. Be available for a partner call in 15 minutes." End quote. Sir, it seems like you're trying to conceal your involvement in a matter of fraud. Why?
Mr. Chair, that is completely beyond the pale. It's completely false, and it's not true. The article states very clearly that the Gowie Group had no contact with me, which is true, and Mr. Anderson indicated that this is a different Randy. Mr. Barrett, your first name is Michael. Mr. Cooper's first name is Michael. Are we to confuse your two identities here at committee when you ask questions of me that are spurious in nature?
Well,
there's more than one Randy in here.
I look forward, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Boissonnault being in opposition and having the opportunity to...
He asked a very long question, Mr. Chair. He asked a very long question. I have more seconds.
And I realize that, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So there
Mr. Chair,
are
I have time on the clock to answer that question.
There are other texts as well that outline how quickly you wanted this wire transfer to go through.
Mr. Barrett, that is not me, and you cannot state that for the record. That is simply not true, Mr. Chair. That is not true, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to look. I thought I made my expectation very clear at the beginning that questions will be asked and time will be given to respond to that. I am going to Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett, Minister, please don't intervene. I'm going to ask the same of the questioners as well. Mr. Barrett, go ahead. You've got 1 minute and 12 seconds, sir.
Like the lack of respect for procedure at committee, we've seen the same lack of adherence to ethics rules. The minister talked about Canada's stringent ethics rules. His government, of course, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has twice been found guilty of breaking those laws. And that's why we have questions about alleged law breaking by our witness, by the minister. The company has been trying to get the money back. The company that was defrauded of
Sorry, I just want to check. Committee's still not on. Okay.
$500,000 from your business. Where did the money from
Mr. Chair.
Chair.
It is.
A chair.
Point of order, Chair.
He is not stating facts, and I
But
cannot
he
let
didn't finish
falsehoods
his
go, Mr.
question.
Chair.
You're going to have ample opportunity to
30 seconds was the length
I
of
know
my
you're
question.
protecting his
And
clips, Mr. Chair,
no,
but
I'm
he
not
is stating
actually.
falsehoods.
I'm not actually, Mr. Boissonneau. I'm
So we have
actually.
a corrupt minister from a corrupt
Ask
government.
not true.
that's-
Question.
That is
Point
simply
of
beyond
order,
order.
Mr.
Mr. Chair, that is outrageous behavior by that
Mr.
member.
Barrett,
Can I have my time? I've asked for 2 points of order.
I'm going to go on your point of order. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
I have never, in my almost 3 years of public service, seen such disrespect
Point of
by
order.
a minister
Point of order.
for the procedures
Point of
here
order.
at committee.
Well, he's point of ordering.
constantly talking over the witness, and now he's talking over the chair.
I've got
It is
your point of
conduct
order.
unbecoming.
I've got your
order.
point of order, Mr. Brock. I appreciate that. Mr. Barrett, you were at 34 seconds in your intervention. So I'm going to ask you to ask your question. And
Point of order.
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Housefather.
Mr. Chair, referring to someone as corrupt is unparliamentary. I would ask that you order it be withdrawn.
Sorry, ask that I order it what?
I would ask that you ask Mr. Barrett to withdraw those comments. That is unparliamentary to refer to someone as corrupt.
Yeah, Mr. Barrett, I am going to ask that you withdraw those comments, please.
Alleged corruption by a corrupt government.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. You have had.
It was not a withdrawal, Mr. Chair. It was a doubling down.
We've got a point of order from Mr. Villemure. Go ahead, Mr. Villemure. Allez, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so you guys can see how the previous committees have gone. I don't know what's taking them so long. They were supposed to be starting 9 minutes ago. So let me try and find another one for us, because there's been a few like that where he's just been like this is 3 months ago. This is from June. Let me find another one on my channel. There was another really good one. Oh, this is his business partner, right? I think you guys have. If you haven't seen this one's really funny.
Minister Randy Boissonneau's office is quoted in media reports saying that Minister Boissonneau was at a cabinet retreat in Vancouver. The Liberal cabinet retreat was in Vancouver, September 6th to September 8th, 2022. Mr. Anderson, you've said that you had offices in Edmonton. You said today that you had offices in Edmonton and Quebec. But text messages from you from September 6, 2022, where you say you need to update Randy on the wire transfer because the West Coast is closing in 7 minutes and Randy is in the Vancouver office. Do you know what Randy was in Vancouver on that date?
No, I did not know that he was in Vancouver.
Well, who was the
on
Randy
this
that was
date.
in Vancouver?
As I've told you, Mr. Chairman, Randy was not involved after September of 2021, and it was an autocorrect.
But I don't think I want to get into asking you what you think an autocorrect is, but I can tell you that this isn't that. This isn't that. It was Randy Boissonneau. It was Randy Boissonneau. There's only one Randy who's been involved in your company. You've said his name is Randy Boissonneau. You, sir, are the person who said Randy's name. Is it your testimony today that how many times do you say it? 9 references to Randy? Every one of those 9 is an autocorrect?
Yes. Randy Boissonneau was not involved with our operation or in any business relation after September of 20.
I didn't correct myself the first time. I just let the autocorrect go 9 times.
Well, you certainly have said 2 different things. So were you lying then, or are you lying now?
I am not lying in regard to Randy not being involved with the business after September of 2021.
I don't believe you.
Nobody believes him.
So we'll just get that out of the way because your story doesn't add up. So we have the reference in the text message of your 121-person company, and you talk about Shauna.
Sorry, guys, I'm just going to pause it again. Man, this committee. Here, let me put this on my other monitor so I can see exactly when they start.
Felix and Randy. So you can tell us who Shauna is. You can tell us who Felix is. But you can't tell us who Randy is. Or you won't tell us who Randy is. That's because it's Randy Boissonneau. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, no, it is not correct. And I will go on to say that I will not tell the person's name simply because Shauna Parker and Felix Papineau, after everything that has happened, they are in the same litigation that we are involved in as employees of the organization by this particular individual.
Sir, just so you're aware, it's not your choice whether or not to answer the question.
Yeah.
So you must answer the question fully and truthfully.
Mr. Barrett, I am being truthful.
Or not answering the question, which you are not doing, is a contempt of this committee. And there are consequences for contempt. So you have an opportunity today to clear the air and to say who the other Randy is. But the reason you're not saying it is because it's Randy Boissonnault. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, no, that is not correct. And as I have said, I will fulsomely give you all the information in regard to Randy, to this committee, within camera.
Sir, you had a deadline in June to provide us with communication records. You didn't do it. And the reason you didn't do it is because we would have seen these text messages that implicate the only Randy who's worked at your company. It's Randy Boissonnault, a 121-person company. Who bought the interest in the business that was held by a numbered company that was owned by Randy Boissonnault?
No one.
Okay, it's on. We are good. Okay, so you guys got that little refresher there. I mean, this is going to be good. I'm excited for this. This is going to be good. Oh, gosh. I just autocorrect 9 times, and I never bothered to fix the autocorrect. I just let it be. What the heck? Who says that? Here we go. There he is. Yes.
Welcome to me. De l'accès à l'information, de la protection des renseignements personnels et de l'éthique, conformément
pursuant to Standing Order 1083H and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, May 7, 2024. The committee is resuming its study of compliance of a minister to the Conflict of Interest Act.
Before I begin, I just want to talk about a couple of housekeeping rules here. 2 things. Number 1, obviously the committee has been in receipt of a lot of information over the summer, so I expect, Minister, that there will be some very pointed questions today. Secondly, I want to limit the disruptions as possible, and just a reminder to all committee members that any comments are to come through the chair. They're not to be cross-table, and I'm going to enforce that strictly. The other thing that I want to remind everyone is the interpreters and the need for a question to be asked and an answer to be given.
Savage.
Even though we may not like the answer or we may not like the question, I want to remind all members that every member has a right to ask whatever question they want in relation to this issue, even if you don't like the question that's being asked. So with that being said, Ms. Khalid, on what?
On exactly what you're saying. I just want to add something, if that's okay.
Well, I don't think there's a need to add something. I think I've been pretty clear.
Chair, I just want to
Khalid's already getting a point of order
in. 18 to say that yes, absolutely, everybody has the right to ask the questions that they're entitled to, but they must do so respectfully and refuse from calling people names, etc. And if there is respectful discussion, then I won't need to step in to make sure that disrespect is.
Well, right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Khalid, for that.
You can already see the chirping, Chair. I'm just putting it out there. I would appreciate if you would be proactive.
I will conduct the meeting in the manner in which I think it needs to go. Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Boissonnault, you have 5 minutes to address the committee. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, every member of this committee, every member of Parliament has an obligation to conduct themselves in a manner that respects both the letter and the spirit of Canada's strict ethics regime for public officials. Throughout my time in public life, I've always done just that. As I explained to this committee in the spring, I respect the role of the opposition in holding the government to account on important issues. However, it's no secret that our conversations on accountability can, more often than not, be clouded by partisan interests. This has been particularly evident in the conduct of Conservative MPs in this Parliament. When we are talking about people's reputations, people's ethics, as they work to organize their financial affairs following an election, conversations that are marked with partisan suspicion and bad faith are neither helpful nor fair. To ensure that fairness, we have a nonpartisan and independent ethics commissioner to advise us, to help ensure compliance with our legal obligations, and to adjudicate matters when concerns might be raised. With that in mind, I'm happy to inform this committee that the ethics commissioner has written to me and told me that he has completed his assessment, including the examination of my phone records. He has once again, for the third time, come to the conclusion there is no cause for concern, and he considers this matter closed. Pour garantir l'impartialité du Parlement.
To ensure that fairness, we have a non-partisan and independent ethics commissioner to advise us, to help ensure compliance with our legal obligations, and to adjudicate matters when concerns might be raised. With that in mind, I'm happy to inform this committee that the Ethics Commissioner has written to me and told me that he has completed his assessment, including the examination of my phone records. And he has once again, for the third time, come to the conclusion that there is no cause for concern, and he considers this matter closed.
Ethics Office for reviewing the facts and the evidence and confirming to me once again that he sees no reason to believe the allegations made about me in the media and by Conservative MPs. Colleagues, the Commissioner has no reason to believe these allegations because those allegations simply aren't true. That said, I do recognize the distraction that this matter has become. I sincerely regret the partisan attacks. I'm disappointed by them and the allegations that have prompted and the effect they've had on my family and those around me. With the benefit of hindsight, I would not have gone into business with Mr. Anderson. And while it has had no impact whatsoever on my duties as a minister, and while I have always followed my ethical obligations, it is clear in hindsight that this is not an individual whose actions and choices I would want reflecting on me. Chers collègues, avec du recul, je n'aurais pas dû faire affaire avec Monsieur.
Dear colleagues, with the benefit of hindsight, I would not have gone into business with Mr. Anderson, while it has had no impact whatsoever on my duties as a minister, and while I have always followed my ethical obligations, it is clear in hindsight that this is not an individual whose actions and choices I would want reflecting on.
I had deep concerns following Mr. Anderson's testimony before this committee. Like all of you, I believe he has an obligation to be forthright with this committee about the facts of this matter, in particular because I know those facts would further confirm that I'm not involved. If Mr. Anderson was in fact intending to refer to someone else in the text messages he sent, he should give that person's name to this committee. If he was in fact using my name without my knowledge or permission, then he should tell that to this committee. I do not know which is the case, but I can say unequivocally that I absolutely did not take part in the conversations referenced. I sent no such messages to Mr. Anderson. I had no involvement with any dealings or business with the Gowie Group, and any suggestion to the contrary is not true. In the spirit of transparency, I have proactively sent my own records for September 6th and 7th to the clerk of the committee this morning, which I previously gave to the Ethics Commissioner at his request prior to his most recent letter to me on this matter. I trust that this will further illustrate the simple truth. Whatever happened here, I was not involved, and I invite the members here to review those records for themselves. Once again, I thank the Ethics Commissioner for impartially reviewing the evidence and confirming this for a third time. Chers amis, je suis ici pour...
Dear friends, I'm here to shed light on this question, and
that I can today, even though I was not involved in the events this committee seems to have questions about. Let's have a conversation about the facts. Let's move beyond the baseless accusations and innuendo, and then let's all get back to work delivering for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boissonnault. And just for the benefit of the committee, we did receive that information at 1:08 this afternoon. It has not been sent out to translation, or it has been. It will come back as translated, and then we'll certainly share that with the committee when it does come back. Again, just a reminder to everyone, to be mindful of our interpreters. Members have time to ask questions. Minister, you have time to respond. I don't want to be in a position where and let's go. Mr. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I ask that, in keeping with the spirit of disruptions, that if there is points of order, that the point of order be stated in advance of the intervention?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
It's a fair ask. Mr. Barrett, go ahead for 6 minutes, please.
Mr. Boissonnault, who's Randy?
Mr. Barrett, could you clarify your question?
There are a series of text messages from your discredited business partner, Mr. Anderson. Those messages refer to Randy. That's you, right?
It is not. And in fact, as I indicated in my opening statement, I've turned over my phone records to the Ethics Commissioner and now to this committee. And as you will see, they show none of the text messages that have been reported on by Global News. The messages that I turned over were across all platforms, Mr. Barrett, across all the telephones that I have. And the Commissioner of Ethics has come to the conclusion
where were you
that I am not that Randy.
Where were you on September the 6th?
So let's walk through a timeline which I think will be helpful.
You had the same amount of time to answer
It's
based
up
on
to
the
the
amount
chair
of
to
time
decide.
that
Chair,
I asked.
how are you managing time? Do I get to do fulsome answers?
Similarly to what how we managed it last time, the time that the question is asked is the time you will have to respond. Mr. Barrett asked you where you were on September 6th. Answer the question.
2022.
I was in Edmonton and I traveled to Vancouver in the morning.
Were you at the Liberal Cabinet retreat?
I arrived in the morning, Vancouver time. The Cabinet retreat started in the evening of September 6th.
Okay. And you spoke on the phone that day to your business partner, Stephen Anderson, correct?
Mr. Chair, I have a timeline that I would like to share with this committee that will answer Mr. Barrett's question fully. There was a 1 minute phone call
it's a yes
that
or no
followed
question.
a text that I received from
you,
Pure Relator asking for an account to be settled. I texted Mr. Anderson. He called me back. We had a 1 minute phone call about this issue, and then I sent the text to him. I didn't.
So you called and texted Mr. Anderson that day, yes or no?
I did not call him. He called me.
Okay.
I texted him to let him know
you
that I
spoke to
had
him
an
on the
account.
telephone that day.
Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Okay. So we've established that you spoke to him on the phone and you exchanged text messages with him on the date of September 6th. So I want to refer you to a statement from your staff in regard to this matter that said that it wouldn't have been possible on the 8th of September because you were at a cabinet retreat in Vancouver and had no access to any electronic devices on the 8th. But you were also at a cabinet retreat on the 6th of September of 2022. And of course you had access to your devices that day, as you did on the 8th. Is that not true?
That is not true. During the 7th and 8th, during cabinet meetings during the day, our devices are locked up in lock boxes. On the 6th, there were no cabinet meetings during the day. And I can tell you the time, Mr. Barrett. The time that I got the voicemail to transcription was 11:28 a.m.
On the 6th?
The conversation with Mr. Anderson took place at 11:29 and lasted for 1 minute.
Please.
On the 6th and the 8th, did you have access to electronic devices during the day at all?
On the 7th or the 8th?
On the 6th or the 8th, did you at any time have access to your electronic devices, yes or no?
I had access to my electronic devices when I was not in confidential cabinet meetings, yes.
So you're in Vancouver on the phone with your discredited business partner, Stephen Anderson. We have text messages from Mr. Anderson to a client that your company ripped off. And those text messages say, I have Randy and them I need to update. Asking, as West Coast is closing in 7 minutes, you were on the West Coast, and Randy is in Vancouver. Well, you're Randy that was on the West Coast in Vancouver. Isn't that right?
So, Mr. Barrett, let me refer you to the Commissioner of Ethics letter from June 25th, when he stated very clearly, other than the name Randy being used in text messages from Mr. Anderson to Malvina Gowie, messages with according to the published excerpts were neither addressed nor copied to you. I do not have any information before me to support the allegation that you were involved in managing or operating GHI.
So you expect Canadians to believe that the Randy referred to in these texts 9 times is anyone else but you, that the Randy who is in Vancouver and who needs to be updated on the money transfer is anyone else but you, and you admit to speaking to your business partner on the phone. Why don't you just admit that you're the Randy that he's talking about?
So the person in question was no longer my business partner. I was simply a shareholder of the company. I had no operational role in that company. And because Purelator was looking to settle an account, they had my number still in their logbook. They reached out to me. They could not contact GHI. I informed Mr. Anderson of that fact. He called me. I informed him that I would send him the text, which I did, and the conversation ended there.
So we
and
have
the texts are with the commissioner and with this committee.
After you claim to have been done being involved in the operations of this business, you're expecting us to believe that you are dealing with your business partner on accounts payable, but you're not dealing with him on accounts receivable. That, of course, is far too incredible for anyone to believe. Have you ever been given money from Mr. Anderson since 2021 to either from his personal account, from his personal bank accounts, or from any bank accounts of people that he is connected with? Because, Minister, I've got to say, where there's smoke, there's fire.
No, Mr. Barrett, you're simply mistaken. Purelator reached out to me because they had my number on an old logbook.
Received the money. The question is about the money. Have you received
had
money?
Several questions in your statement, and you had a long time. So am I able to answer with the time that he used, Mr. Chair?
I'm going to give you a couple of extra seconds. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. So, look, I was very clear that I earn no income from GHI after I stopped working for the company when I was elected. There was one end of a wrap-up for 2021 payment that came to me to wrap up the 2021 business, but those monies came from GHI.
Thank you. Ms. Shanahan, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. My microphone is on, or do I?
It's off now.
Shanahan sucks.
Gotcha.
Full of shenanigans.
All right. Thank you very much, Chair. Just trying to follow the jumble of dates and so on that Mr. Barrett was referring to. Minister Boissonnault, can you explain the context of this phone call that Mr. Barrett is asking about? Because I'm hearing the date of the 6th, the 8th. Which is it?
So, Ms. Shanahan, I'm happy to provide context for this call. These were the additional records and dates that the Ethics Commissioner reviewed prior to his September 12th letter. On September 6th, while I was en route to Vancouver, a call came in that I was not able to take from regarding GHI's account with the company. They were using records they had on file in attempt to reach somebody from the company. Despite the fact that I had not been involved in the company for more than a year, I then got a voicemail to text indicating Global Health's import account with Purelator. I texted Mr. Anderson to let him know about this voicemail. He then called me at 11:29 Mountain Time for a 1-minute phone call. At 11:30 Mountain Time, that phone call ended. We discussed this account entirely. That was it. I forwarded the messages from Purelator to Mr. Anderson, and the conversation ended. This is all documented clearly in the records that I provided to the Ethics Commissioner and that we have submitted proactively to the committee today for your information. And it was after reviewing these messages that the Ethics Commissioner wrote me on September 12th and declined to investigate and close this matter. And if I can, Madam Shanahan, the Commissioner said the following: on the basis of the information you have provided, and in the absence of any evidence giving me reason to believe you may have been operating or managing GHI in contravention of the Act, I consider this matter closed.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Minister, and I'm sure Mr. Barrett appreciates it as well. Ministre Boissonnault, j'aimerais changer.
Minister Boissonnault, I'll do this in French because the electors in Châteauguay in my riding will be interested in this question. So we often hear about these false scandals, and they ask me, Ms. Shanahan, how is it possible that we're still hearing about these situations of conflict of interest and something that is just off? I know that as MPs, we work with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, his office, when we come here to Ottawa and we assume the role of MPs. because prior to doing so, we might be in some kind of business. We might have shares in different companies and property. So for those of us who have more, that process might take a bit more time. So if you could just share with us how that procedure works. Yes, of course. As you mentioned, Ms. Shanahan, there's a very important procedure in place. When we become members of parliament, we all have a responsibility as per the law, and we have to comply with the law on conflict of interest. And when you become a minister, the procedure is more in depth. You have to spend time with the commissioner and his staff. You need to send your bank statements and all relevant documentation with regard to investments, documentation for your spouse and partner, and any other information relating to companies that you might be involved in. So the commissioner compiles all of this information, and then there are conversations to see how these shares and interests could be transferred in a way that is compliant with the law. That can take months in some cases. In my situation, it took 6 months, but at the end of it all, we were able to take care of the whole procedure. And every single time, every year, you have to provide updates on your personal situation and provide information, Ms. Shanahan. So I think the best way of explaining this to our electors is to use an example from the sports world. We have a referee who is there to make sure that we are playing by the rules, and the referee in this example is the Commissioner of Conflict of Interest and Ethics. And this, in my case, happened not just once or twice, but 3 times, and he has made it clear that these allegations from the Conservatives that we have seen in the media as well are not they don't have a foundation. There's nothing to it. Okay, that's very interesting, Minister. Well, it could be the case that maybe some MPs have made mistakes over the years and something surfaces or there's an email. But this has been very reassuring to see and know that there has been communication with the Office of the Ethics Commissioner, and they took the time to look into this. And if I understand this correctly, in your case, it's not just once, it's not even twice, it's been 3 times now, if I've understood this correctly. Yes, it's been 3 times that your situation was examined in depth, and they didn't find anything. Yes, the Ethics Commissioner was very clear on this, Ms. Shanahan, and he was saying that based on the information you provided and in the absence of any evidence, I have no reason to believe that you were involved in the management of this company. So in light of the applicable legislation, I had considered this case to be closed. Okay, so what did you have to do? What did you have to provide, or why did the commissioner ask you to? A very quick answer, please. All of my phone records, text messages, that correspond to the dates in question.
Shanahan, Monsieur Boissonnault. Monsieur Villemure, pour...
Mr. Villemure for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Minister, I've been listening to the discussion, and for my electors in Quebec, we'll go over some of the same information maybe in French. Now, despite the conclusions of the Ethics Commissioner, and once again, we have you here before us, how do you explain that? Well, it's a question I would ask your colleagues. I think there are certain members of the Parliament around this table, Conservative MPs, who don't believe in the truth or in the statements of the Ethics Commissioner, and it's a shame because he is the referee. He is an officer of the Parliament. We pay his salary. He's provided with a team, and when an officer of the Parliament makes statements on business issues or personal issues or on issues of compliance with the law, we have to take his word for the truth. And Mr. Villemure, for yourself and for your electors, when I swore in as an MP and I became a minister, I took all of that, those procedures very, very seriously. So to put that question to rest and to shed light on this matter. That's why I'm here today. Thank you very much. So the Commissioner considered that your actions were in compliance with the law. Is that the case? Yes, absolutely, 3 times. So in that case, there might be some things, while being legal, are still not ethical. Would you agree with that? Well, if that was the case, the Commissioner would make that point. He carried out a preliminary examination, and he concluded 3 times that there was no need to go forth with this matter. He made it clear that I wasn't in any kind of gray zone, that I was in violation of the legislation, its wording or its spirit. So he did not find anything, and you're saying it's normal because there was nothing. Well, absolutely, yes, Mr. Villemure. When you look at the beginning of the statement, or the beginning of this all, the date is June 4th, and it says that the Commissioner states that I respected the rules laid out by the legislation, and he says that it looks like the Minister respected the obligations under the law when it comes to his association with these businesses, so there's no need to pursue this matter any further. So, reading this report and faced with the situation we're faced with, do you think that these rules are sufficient? Well, we have one of the most robust conflict of interest and ethics systems in the world. Of course, we can always debate these issues as parliamentarians, but we do have some tools available to us, and we are all subject to the same law as members of parliament or ministers, and we have seen here in this case that at 3 different occasions the Commissioner made it clear that I followed the rules, and he considers this affair to be closed as of September 12th. Well, I'll point to something that's a bit outside the scope of what we've discussed so far. In Quebec, there is the Charbonneau Commission, as you know, and during that process, there was a question to a gentleman to know who was with them, and they said, well, I was accompanied by the person accompanying me. So when we are asking you who's Randy, we find ourselves in a similar situation in terms of the answer you're providing us with. So even today, so to the best of your knowledge, who's Randy? Well, I cannot answer this question. My answer would be, it's not me. And it's the Ethics Commissioner who made it very clear that it's not me. So it's not you. It's not me. And there are 2 possibilities. It's either Mr. Anderson was communicating with someone who's called Randy and he did not want to disclose their identity, or, unfortunately, maybe without my knowledge, he was using my name to make his business work. Again, without my knowledge. If that is the case, then he owes an answer to this commission, to this committee. So what would your guess be on that? Well, I really have no idea what the reality might have been. It's up to Mr. Anderson to answer this question. So Mr. Anderson lied, if we can put it this way, or there's another Randy, but you don't know this other Randy if there's another Randy. It's not me, but you don't know them. I don't know any other Randy. Okay, thank you very much. When you were talking about the timeline, if you can fill in the gaps, if you will, and let us know where we are at this point in time. You referred to a timeline. I just want to give you the opportunity to fill in some of the gaps you may have left. So I was leaving Edmonton to go to Vancouver on September 6th, and I received a text message from Purolator that had information in it that had to do with someone from GHI. So I sent a message to Mr. Anderson to let him know, and he called me. I sent him the message at 11:28 Mountain Time, and then he called me. We had a 1-minute long conversation. And by 11:30, that was the end of the conversation, and this is all documented in the logs I provided. So you didn't have any other communication with another Randy? No, not at all. And Mr. Villemure, the ethics commissioner said that this matter is closed now.
6 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Very much, Mr. Chair. Clearly, you don't know who the other Randy is because Mr. Anderson admitted under testimony that he was lying about the other Randy. Is that correct?
I'm not going to put any words in Mr. Anderson's mouth.
Did you watch
Mr.
the
Green.
testimony of Mr. Anderson?
It was painful.
Can you take me back to the moment that you met Mr. Anderson?
It was painful.
I can't recall exactly when I met Mr. Anderson. I met him at a couple of community events in Edmonton, and then we reconnected on a flight early in the pandemic. Would have been probably in the late winter, early spring of 2020.
And in that couple of times that you met him in the community, what was your perception of Mr. Anderson?
I knew that Mr. Anderson had run an import-export business. He informed me that that business was doing well and that he had a successful business.
So did he pitch you on the plane to start a business together, or did you pitch him?
Neither of us pitched each other whatsoever on starting a business on that plane ride.
So that was a fabrication from Mr. Anderson as well?
No. What happened, and I'm happy to share this information, is it was several days or a week later, and I'm a private citizen at this time. I received an email or communication on my phone indicating that the country needed people who understood how to bring.
At what point did you start a business relationship with Mr. Anderson?
In April of 2020, Mr. Green.
How would you have characterized Mr. Anderson's competencies? Did you believe him to be competent?
I believe that he knew how to do import-export activities.
Did you believe him to be honest?
I had no reason not to believe that he was honest.
So you say it's clear in hindsight that you would not have gone into business with Mr. Anderson. When did you have that epiphany?
I think it has been building for some time in 2024, Mr. Green.
It wasn't when you were under allegations of fraud?
Can you clarify this question?
Was the company not under the proceedings of a civil case?
Not while I was, not at the time that I was involved in the operations of the company.
What about afterwards?
I had no operational role in the committee.
But you would have been listed, right, as a director likely?
I was not a director.
You were a shareholder.
I was only a shareholder, and so I was not listed in any of the legal proceedings.
And so, fortunately for you, how many shares did you own percentage-wise?
I owned 50% of the shares, and I have, since that time, unilaterally and voluntarily disposed of those shares.
You were a silent partner, an investor, with 50% investment in this company.
It is, yes, I had 50%.
Okay, I'll take that.
Sure.
Now, in a 50-50 partnership, your number is still listed on Purelator sometime after the case. So had you ever had any other instances where there was a crossover between business inquiries and your personal phone?
It might have happened before, but on September 6th, it did take place, and I informed Mr. Anderson of the fact that Purelator was trying to get in touch with GHI, and I just informed him. They called my personal phone.
Okay, so they still had your personal phone on
Purelator must have still had it in their old records.
Where does Purelator deliver its information or its packages or whatever it is you'd be receiving? Where does it deliver it to for GHI?
I have no idea.
You don't know the address of GHI?
I do not, because I haven't been involved in the company in over 3 years.
When you were involved,
Mr. Green.
Where did stuff get delivered?
There was a warehouse that it was directed to on the south side of Edmonton. For a time, it was at a medical supply company that had an extra bay, and then Mr. Anderson picked another warehouse on the south side of Edmonton.
So all your deliveries and mail were going to warehouses?
I can't comment on mail. Mr. Anderson would have received physical mail at
Purelator reached out to you.
Purelator reached out to me because for a time, I was the contact for the Purelator account, and it was just a legacy number left on their system. That's simply how they contacted me.
So, I would put to you that within the 6 minutes of Mr. Anderson's testimony, as somebody who doesn't know him but has also been involved in business, I didn't see him as being a credible witness. I didn't see him as being credible. I saw him, in fact, unravel right before us in terms of the stories that he was telling. How come it took you so long to realize that you were dealing with somebody that couldn't be trusted?
As I said in my opening statement, and I'll say it again, Mr. Green, with the benefit of hindsight, and having been dismayed by that testimony, would not have gone into business with Mr. Anderson if I had to do it all over again? I mean, you'd have to define lucrative. And
You're in a 50-50 partnership. Mr. Anderson testified that he was drawing $250,000 a year. Is it safe for me to assume that that was also your income?
My income has been declared to the Ethics Commissioner, and you know that when we are private citizens, we don't discuss those matters in these forums, that we have a place.
So I'm going to ask you, because it's public testimony.
Sure.
He suggested that you, when I put these questions to him, that you were receiving $250,000 a year in compensation. Were there additional compensations to the $250,000, or was that just your base salary?
So these matters have been shared with the Ethics Commissioner because it's the right place to share that information. And all of this information was disclosed in my initial filing to the Commissioner.
You suggested that the wrap-ups for your payments from GHI were a wrap-up in 2021. What was the nature of that contract, and did that contract continue to be in execution into 2023, 2024?
Look, that's a very fair question. And when I said that there was a 2021 year-end wrap-up payment, it was exactly that. It was for work that was done in 2021, but did not continue after I was elected in office in September of 21.
So when was the absolute last time you received any money from Mr. Anderson and or any related parties?
Late 2022 or late January 2022 or early February 2022.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. Thank you, Minister. That concludes our first round, 6-minute round. We're going to now start with 5 minutes. And I'm going to go to Mr. Cooper for 5. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister Boissonnault, when you last appeared before this committee had text messages referencing a Randy from September 8th. You said the Randy referenced in those text messages was not you, and your office even put out a statement saying that you were in Vancouver and had no access to electronic devices, and that you had made no phone calls during the time frame in question on September 8th. Since you appeared before committee, we now have a new tranche of text messages from September 6th that reference Randy in Vancouver. You, Randy, through you, Mr. Chair, were in Vancouver, and now you tell the committee that you did talk to Anderson. You did text Anderson. You didn't say that before. You left this committee with the impression that you had no communications with Anderson, and now you say that? I would submit, Mr. Boissonnault, through you, Mr. Chair, that that is a material omission. It is a material misrepresentation. Why didn't you tell the full truth the last time you appeared before the committee? Why are we only finding out about this now? Is it because you need a new cover story?
Minister?
I reject the ending of your question, Mr. Cooper, emphatically. Look, the testimony that I gave at this committee in when I was last here was about September 8th, and then after summer testimony, I proactively provided my text messages to the Commissioner of Ethics. And Mr. Cooper, I don't have data in my phone that indicates who I texted over 2 years ago. Mr. Chair, I get more time.
You had a choice.
I do believe I get more time.
You had a choice to come to this committee and be forthcoming.
Hang on, Mr. Cooper. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds to respond. Members do have the right to reclaim their time as well, and I'm trying to be as fair as I can. Minister, please go ahead.
So, Mr. Cooper, in the morning of September 6th, as I indicated, I got a text message from Purelator. I indicated that to Mr. Anderson. He called me. We had a 1-minute phone call.
You had a choice.
I sent him the text.
Point of order, Mr.
Chair. Mr. Cooper.
You didn't do so.
I'm going to Mr. Cooper. Go ahead, Mr.
But you didn't do so very conveniently.
Hang on. Point of order, Mr. Fisher.
As Mr. Green had recommended, Standing Order 16-2, interrupting the witness.
Okay. I listened to Mr. Green's questioning, and there were several times where he did reclaim his time in advance of the minister responding. And so I'm going to ask that Mr. Cooper, we give ample time for the question. I know you had a long preamble. The question was there. You have the floor, sir. Go ahead. Ask your question.
Mr. Chair, the minister had a choice to come here and be forthcoming. He didn't do so. He misrepresented this committee by omission. And I've got to ask you, you said you had nothing to do with the operations of GHI, and now you admit, in fact, you did. The paying of a bill, that is an operational matter. If you had nothing to do with GHI, why wouldn't you simply pick up the phone, call Purelator, tell them that you have nothing to do with the operations of the business, and for them to call Anderson? Why didn't you do that?
Minister?
That is a really great question, and the answer is I did 3 times. And it was a collections group of Purelator that I never contacted that still somehow had my information from their database. So, Mr. Cooper,
You could have at
Mr. Cooper, let me finish.
Mr. Boissonnault, why didn't you, at the very least, okay, just text him, say, contact Purelator. Why did you then pick up the phone? Isn't the reason you picked up the phone because you wanted to talk about the $500,000 shakedown? That's why you called Anderson, isn't it?
Minister, go ahead, please.
Not at all. That is simply false, Mr. Cooper. And as I've indicated before, I have nothing to do with the Gowie Group. I have nothing to do with all of those deals with Mr. Anderson took place after I was an operational member of this company. And I did text Mr. Anderson. He responded to me by telephone. I indicated to him that this bill was there and he should take care of it because I didn't want further text messages from
Minister
Purelator.
Boissonnault, no one believes you. And after you materially misled this committee by leaving out a material fact, you've lost any benefit of the doubt. 9, you have yet to explain how there are 9 text messages referencing Randy when the only Randy at GHI ever was you. You had a 50% interest. You have a text message placing you in Vancouver. You were in Vancouver. You've now admitted that on that very day you spoke and texted with none other than Anderson, which you weren't forthcoming about until you had now no choice because you want to cover your butt. And so, very simply, Minister Boissonnault, do you think Canadians are stupid? Everyone knows it's you. The Randy in the text messages, the Randy in the $500,000 shakedown is you, and you, sir, have lacked the character and judgment to serve in cabinet. If you had any integrity,
Point of order.
you would resign.
Point of order. Point of order.
Okay, thank you. Minister Boissonnault, I'm going to give you some time to respond quickly, if you don't mind.
Sure, I will go quickly.
As quick as
Mr.
possible,
Cooper,
please.
if the allegations that you just threw at me were true, the Ethics Commissioner would have seen in an exhaustive evaluation of all the text messages on all of the telephones that I have on all platforms that those text messages existed. They do not. I am not the Randy in question. The Ethics Commissioner has said so, and he considers this matter closed.
No one believes you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Baines, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Look at him smirking.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for joining us again. Isn't this case closed?
Mr. Bates, that's certainly what the Commissioner of Ethics thinks and has stated in his letter to me that has been now reported in the media. This matter is closed because not once, not twice, but 3 times now, I have shared exhaustive information with the Ethics Commissioner and with this committee, indicating that I have followed the rules, starting back with my initial filings with the Commissioner, proceeding then to when the story first broke in Global, and that is when I was asked to provide text information about September 8th, which I did, again, across all platforms and on all devices that I have. And based on that, the Commissioner said there was no need to have further examination of the matter. And then following summer testimony, we provided more text messages for 6 and 7 September to the Commissioner, which the committee now has. And that is how the Commissioner has come to the 3rd time indicating that there is no involvement in my operating of this company and that he considers the matter closed.
But despite that, we're still reviewing the matter. So how closed is it? Do we need to go back to the Commissioner again and do it a 4th time?
I hope not. Look, I'm always happy to participate with questions from the Ethics Commissioner, but Look, I'm here today to clarify matters, to share the information that I have, and I hope that this allows the Ethics Committee to get on with its very important business. I know you have important studies that you want to undertake, and I'm here because I take my oath as a minister seriously and my responsibilities under the Act seriously.
And thank you for that. So despite the matter being closed 3 times, and maybe we're anticipating a 4th time for the matter to be closed, but I do have just a few questions here. Have you ever spoken to or met with anyone from the Gowie Group?
No, I have not, and they acknowledge that themselves in media reports on the matter.
Okay, and were you involved in any way with the business deal between Gowie or GHI?
No, never in my time with GHI had my time with GHI concluded prior to Mr. Anderson's business deal with the Gowie Group, and I have had no contact with the people in that group.
And any messages shared between Gowie Group that have been reported on by Global News? Did you send any of those messages?
I did not, and I shared my text messages on all platforms and all devices with the Ethics Commissioner, and the Ethics Commissioner has indicated that I'm not the person in question.
Have you had any role in the operations of GHI since you were elected in 2021?
I have not.
Have you been kept up to date since being elected regarding who the employees of GHI are, or who may have been hired, quit, active workforce, etc.?
No, I haven't, and I'm not aware of GHI's new businesses or any contracts they would have pursued or any legal activities. It would not be appropriate or compliant with the Act to do so. I took my disclosure process seriously, and when I stopped being involved in the operations of GHI, I stopped being involved in the operations of GHI, and since that time, I have unilaterally surrendered my shares for no compensation.
So you're not a shareholder of GHI. Did you receive any compensation for your shares when you surrendered them? You just said you didn't.
I did not receive any compensation, and this might also answer one of Mr. Green's questions. I also did not receive any dividends from the company as a shareholder at any time.
Have you ever met Carla Roddick, President of Canada Medical?
I have not.
Have you ever met Ian Stedman, Assistant Professor of Ethics and Governance at York University?
No, I have not.
Have you ever met Curtis James, who ran a warehouse next door to GHI's warehouse?
I have not.
Have you ever been contacted by Edmonton Police Services related to GHI?
No, I have not.
Have you ever met Francesca LeBlond?
No, I have not. I do not know who that person is.
Have you ever been involved in any business dealings with Francesca LeBlond?
Not at all.
Okay, well, those are my questions. I consider this matter closed for the 4th time.
Well, we certainly appreciate that, Mr. Baines, but we'll carry on with Mr. Villemure for 2.5 minutes. Excusez, Monsieur Villemure, 2 minutes et demie. Commencez, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Chair. I will be ceding my time to Mr. Matthew Green.
Mr. Green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Boissonnault, you've stated that many times that the Ethics Commissioner cleared you 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times. You would also acknowledge in order to open up an investigation, the Ethics Commissioner would have to have some kind of reasonable grounds to even embark on something so as it not to be frivolous or vexatious. Would you not agree?
I understand that that's the process, yes.
So in that process, while you say you've been cleared and it's been closed 3 times, it's also true that every time something's closed, new information comes out and you're back in and under investigation of the Ethics Commissioner.
I'm not sure it's actually called an investigation at this stage. He asked me for information.
You can save the semantics. The point is that a case was opened, it was closed, another case was opened, it was closed, and it's because the Ethics Commissioner has no real legal authority, investigative authority, to take warrants or subpoena or use anything that could get beyond voluntary disclosure. Is that not true?
No, if the Commissioner of Ethics asks you for information, you comply. It's not optional.
You voluntarily give it to him, correct?
I would have to ask my team and look at the act as to what the penalties would be for noncompliance, but I take my responsibilities very seriously. And
well, the penalty for even being in violation is only $500. So I can't imagine it's material when you're in an industry that you're getting a payout of $250,000 a year. And now you've said that you received no earned income, no dividends. At any time, did you loan money to the company?
No.
There was never any shareholder loans?
No.
Okay. So with that being said, during this process of the ethics commissioners, I'll call it a review to be charitable to you, review, you stated that he, emphatically cleared you, and then you went on to state that he does not have any information before him, and it's on the basis on the information you've provided.
Those are the words in the commissioner's letter.
Correct.
And what is different, the third letter that he sent me was the first time that the commissioner said, I considered this matter closed.
The matter that was under review. Correct. But I think we can all agree that he has no authority to do, or resources, quite frankly, to do the work that we've witnessed the media do, which quite frankly has gotten more information and disclosure that has resulted in additional, I'll call them reviews. I say investigation, I'll give you review, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Do you have any knowledge of any information that could come out in the future that would put you back before this committee?
I do not, Mr. Green. And look, I said to Mr. Villemure in French that we do have one of the most robust ethics and conflict of interest systems in the world. And we go through a lot of steps to make sure that we comply with the rules. And I followed those rules. And I think what is important to reflect from the 3 letters that I've received from the commissioner is that every single time he's indicated that I've followed the rules. And in the last 2 issues that were related to text messages, he indicated very clearly that I had no operational role in the company, which is what I've always asserted to this August committee.
But you would agree that dealing with matters of outstanding bills is an operational feature?
No, I did not settle a bill. I informed Mr. Anderson that I received a text from Pure Leader.
Okay. Look, I would love as much as anybody to be able to move beyond this particular issue. The challenge that faces me is that, from the get-go, this has been a sordid tale of allegations of fraud and corruption in some instances. The stories do not add up. I'll share with you, Mr. Boissonnault, that the testimony of Mr. Anderson, within 6 minutes, certainly not somebody that I'd be doing business with. I'm quite frankly shocked that as a minister, a senior minister in this government, it took you to 2024 to come to those same conclusions. And I would hope that, in the days and weeks to come, that the Canadian public does have all the information that's available to it. So I guess in close, do I have a little bit of time? I guess in close, I just want to give you the opportunity to state whatever you feel in your defense, to hopefully not see you back in front of this committee on this particular issue.
Look, Mr. Green, I really appreciate your frankness, and we don't agree on everything in the chamber, but I appreciate your comments today. And I should have done more due diligence on Mr. Anderson. And in hindsight, I would not have gone into business with him if I had to do it over again. And I was dismayed by his testimony. And quite frankly, I regret all of the time that officers and members of Parliament have had to spend on this matter. And with your good graces, we could put this behind us. That's entirely in your hands.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Green. We're going to go. Sorry. Oh, okay.
I heard good graces that I just thought it was funny.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've got a 5-minute round for, I believe Mr. Barrett's going to start, and then we're going to go over to Mr. Brock. So 5 minutes, Mr. Barrett. Go ahead, please, sir.
I have an official document from the Government of Alberta dated March 28th, 2020. It's 2 days before you incorporated Global Health Imports, officially entering into business with Stephen Anderson. It shows Stephen Anderson listed 7 vehicles as collateral, 5 2019 Land Rovers and 2 2019 Porsches, totaling about $1 million. Yes or no, did you know about this?
Not.
So you were unaware that your business partner posted 7 high-end luxury vehicles as collateral. That's your story?
I didn't review that as part of the filings of the company. It was his decision to put collateral. I didn't have any collateral up in my particular.
Are you currently driving any of the Land Rovers or Porsches?
I am not.
Okay. Well, I'm quite sure that no one believes you, other Randy. Mr. Chair, Mr. Brock.
Okay, Mr. Barrett, I'm gonna suggest that was not appropriate. I'm gonna go to Mr. Barrett. Thank you. Or Mr. Brock, go ahead.
Minister, despite your best efforts, this story is not going away anytime soon. The cloud of suspicion will hang over you until the next election, after which time you'd be looking for a new job. Let's take a look at the facts. Galway Group knew of only one Randy, and that Randy was a minister of the Canadian government. That's yourself. At all material times prior to your election, you were in a 50-50 partnership with Anderson. During your time with the company with Mr. Anderson, you in fact were the only person named Randy. Mr. Anderson, who you're now deeply disappointed about, although you didn't say that when you first testified, blatantly lied to the committee about lying to Canadians and lying to the press that there was some other Randy. He also promised this committee to provide us with details as to who the other Randy is. And surprise, surprise, Minister, he couldn't, because by doing so, he would identify yourself. Then we now find out on September the 6th, you're in a text communication with Anderson, you're in a phone call with Anderson, despite you assuring us at committee the first time that you've had no communication with Mr. Anderson. Highly, highly suspicious, Mr. Boissonnault. And furthermore, you know full well that this is indeed an operational issue that is banned by the ethics laws for any minister to engage in a management capacity or an operational capacity. You could have had a staffer reach out to Anderson. You could have simply told the courier company, I got nothing to do with the company, deal with Anderson, go pound salt, not my responsibility. You chose to take matters into your own hands to deal directly with Mr. Anderson. Those are the uncontroverted facts. Now, you're also relying upon the fact that you exercised your due diligence with this committee and your due diligence with the Ethics Commissioner. I asked you specifically to provide us with details, all your text messages on all your devices. You failed to do that, Minister. You gave this committee only one set of records pertaining to one device. I was led to believe you told the Ethics Commissioner you had two devices. Again, the Ethics Commissioner is not an investigator. They don't have investigative powers like law enforcement. They can't obtain production orders on service providers to verify what you are saying. So the Ethics Commissioner has to take it on good faith that you're being honest. I've got some serious reservations about your honesty, as do Canadians. So, will you provide this committee with all text records on all your devices? And tell us how many devices you had in your possession in the fall of 2022.
Mr. Chair, will you give me 2.5 minutes to respond?
We have to
There's
move
only
on.
one question.
I think it was a very simple question. Mr. Brock was commenting.
It was a 2.5-minute question.
I realize that, but it was a very simple question. I'm going to ask you to answer the question, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Housefather.
Mr. Brock, the information that you cited in your monologue was reviewed by the Ethics Commissioner. I'm not the Randy in question. It is not me. It's not possible for it to be me. That is in the Commissioner's letter of September 12th. He considers this matter closed. And look, I'm at the committee's disposal, and I provided the committee with information that it required of me.
Minister, will you provide us with full information?
That's time then.
Will you provide us with, what are you hiding, Minister?
So, just relax.
What are you hiding?
Minister.
I've never seen you do that to anyone else.
No, because when I get you in my ear over here and I'm trying to listen to what's going on, then I can't focus on the questioning, Ms. Khalid, okay? So, Minister, I'm going to ask you, on behalf of Mr. Brock, you've been asked a very specific question about the devices. Are there any other devices that you can provide to the committee, sir?
No, Mr. Chair, because I provided all text messages across all devices for the dates in question, across all platforms, as asked by the committee.
Mr. Housefather for 5 minutes.
Point of order before we go to Mr. Housefather.
On your
Mr.
point of
Chair.
order, go ahead.
Telling a member to relax, I think, is inappropriate, sir, as a chair.
I think I said right at the onset, Mr. Fisher, and I appreciate the challenge, that it's difficult when there's cross-talk that's going
Understood.
on. And so
Understood.
I'm trying to listen to the
Just the
conversation
word
that's going
relax.
on. And when I'm hearing it from this side, I can't focus on what the minister and Mr. Brock
Understood.
are talking about, okay? So I said that right at the onset, and I was going to enforce it, and I did.
On that same point of order, Chair,
On the same point of order, go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
I just respectfully like to ask you, why is it that you only hear it from this side and never from any other party?
I think I did that the other day, actually. I think I heard it from the other day. Yeah, you might want to review the tapes, Ms. Khalid. Mr.
And
Housefather.
if we were going to start counting, then I think that the tally
Review the
would
tapes,
show.
and you'll see how I acted the other day when I heard it coming from this side. On the point of order, Mr. Barrett, go ahead. We've got to go to Mr. Housefather.
Chair, I think that it's unacceptable practice in any committee to have member staff or House officer staff making audible interventions to over top of members of the committee or the chair of the committee or a witness of the committee. And so perhaps a gentle reminder to staff who are here from House officers from the government that if they're interested in intervening at this committee, they can put their name forward to appear as a witness, or they can run for Parliament. They're not to yell over top of us.
I've dealt with that issue before a couple of times, and that's a good reminder to all staff that are here. Mr. Housefather, please go ahead for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Boissonnault, if you used bad judgment to enter into a business relationship with Stephen Anderson, and he shouldn't have been somebody you entered into business with prior to your election and becoming a minister, would that be of the purview of the Ethics Commissioner? Would that be something you're not allowed to do, enter into business with the wrong guy?
No.
In the event that you were paid in any way before you were elected as a minister, whatever the type of arrangement that you had fiscally with the company, would that be something that would be under the purview of this committee or anything the Ethics Commissioner should be interested in?
No, but in your disclosure process, you would be required to inform the Commissioner of that, to provide all of the documentation, and to make sure that a minister is compliant with the Act. They must organize their former private affairs in a way that complies with the Act. So, for example, if you personally have any stocks, actively traded stocks, you have to get rid of them, or you have to sell them. You can't even put them in a blind trust. And so I followed all those rules. And if you'll allow me, Mr. Housefather, I just want to state so the committee hears it again, that I submitted all the messages across all devices for the date requested on September 8th. And I've now done the same for September 6th. It's simply not true that I didn't fulfill my the request from this committee.
Coming back to the issue, the first time you were asked about September the 8th, today we're talking about text messages and one brief phone call on September the 6th. Is it still true you never spoke to Mr. Anderson on the 8th of September?
Yes.
And it's still true you never texted with Mr. Anderson on the 8th of September?
It is.
Perfectly. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to the text messages you exchanged on the 6th, because I'm sure I don't want you to get called back here for more questions about these 6. The first one from you says, hello. And then the next one is, where in the world are you? Great to hear your voice. Somewhere in this, I assume Mr. Anderson called you. If you texted first and then he's responded and he heard his voice?
Correct.
And it would be after, where in the world are you, perhaps?
Correct.
Perfect. And what you probably told him was, hey, I've got a Purolator account collection thing that came in. I'm going to send that to you, right?
Yes, and I don't want to receive any more, so take my name off the list. Take my number off the list.
And basically, a second later, at 5:33 p.m., whatever, UTC,
Just so we're clear,
you sent him the Purolator text.
Just so that we're clear for the record, that is Greenwich Standard Time. So this happened at 11:40, the time that you're asking me about, 11:28 a.m. Mountain, and then 11:29 Mountain, and at 11:30 Mountain, I forwarded the Purolator message.
Thank you very much. And then you said Saturday drink. Did you end up ever meeting him for a drink?
No, we did not.
Okay. And you didn't, after you left the company, socialize frequently with Mr. Anderson?
No.
And after you left the company, you had very sporadic conversations with him, is what I understand?
Correct.
how many conversations do you think you had with him after you left as a participating member of the company?
I couldn't even speculate a guess, 4, maybe 6 in a year or 2.
And I imagine if you were operationally involved in the business, you would have had way more conversations with him?
Absolutely.
During the time that you were operationally involved in the business previous to your election as a minister, how many times a week would you talk to Mr. Anderson?
It would have been several conversations, text messages, emails a day.
Perfect. And I think we're left with the question, you're here because Mr. Anderson chose to reference Randy in multiple text messages. That's the reason we're here. In the end, there are people claiming that you're that Randy. There are people that are, there's no proof of that. All we know is that Mr. Anderson either has somebody else named Randy that he needs to tell the committee who it is, or he misleadingly used your name to different clients of his, trying to somehow bring you in, perhaps that there was a minister of the Crown involved in making himself more important. But the only person, right, Mr. Boissonnault, that can actually answer that question is Mr. Anderson, correct? None of these other people that Mr. Baines asked you about a list of people that you didn't know, none of them would know if Mr. Anderson had exchanged text messages with you or not, presumably, correct?
It's not only is it correct, it's verified in at least 2 letters from the Commissioner of Ethics. One that I can't possibly be the other Randy because there are no text messages to that effect. And then in the most recent letter, he indicated very clearly that I've not been operating the company and considers this matter closed.
But again, the goal of, I believe, the Conservatives on the committee is not to find out who the other Randy is if it's another Randy. Their goal is only to try to make you be that Randy. So the only issue here that can be answered is in text messages between you and Mr. Anderson and claims Mr. Anderson made. So truthfully, the only person that can answer that question, other than you who have clearly told us you're not that person, would be Mr. Anderson, correct?
And he should indicate whether he used my name to advance his business interests without my knowledge, or if there's somebody else out there with the same name as me.
He should, and I absolutely agree, and thank you, Minister.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Housefather. That concludes our round of questioning for today. It's been an hour. It's been an hour after the second round. That's the way it goes. Okay, Mr. Barrett, I see your hand. I'm going to suspend for a couple of minutes. I want to thank the Minister for appearing before committee today. I'm going to suspend for a couple of minutes. Going to come back, open committee business, and I'm going to go to Mr. Barrett when we're back.
Okay. So that was pretty much that. When they go to committee business, there's not really much to see. They're probably just going to talk about who they want to have here next in committee. They'll probably do a motion and vote on it. So I'm actually going to call it there because that's all I really wanted to watch for this committee was I really wanted to see his testimony. I wish we would have got him for another half an hour, to be honest. I don't know why. They still have another half hour in the committee. They really should just do another round of questioning, maybe 3-minute rounds or 2.5-minute rounds or whatever. I don't know why they didn't. I know, shaking hands after. Why would you want to shake his hand after that testimony? That was brutal. Sorry, let me turn my. There we go. I just had to turn my mic up a bit. So yeah, like I was saying there, I'm just going to stop it here because that's really the juice and the meat and potatoes of the committee. So that was really all that's going to happen. The next half hour is just going to be voting on motions and stuff. So. This was my 3rd live stream today. We're not going live tomorrow because question period tomorrow is there's literally nobody. There's backbench Conservatives, backbench Liberals. Sometimes people don't even show up. Like you won't see Trudeau or any of the top people on the Conservative side even or the Liberal side show up on Fridays. Fridays is usually a half day. And I've got a bunch of other stuff to do still. I got a clip I need to clip Jugmeat saying that, he's not going to vote non-confidence. We also have the Bloc who said they're not going to vote in with the Conservatives for non-confidence. So that motion's not going to pass next week. There's also a couple clips I need to record from the committee on Tuesday. And this one was really good. MPs Barrett and Brock went off. I kind of missed that committee live, but I'll go ahead and clip that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. There's going to be no more live streams. There'll be no more live streams tomorrow. So I'll be live again on Monday. But I'll be putting some clips out throughout the weekend just on the channel, but it won't be live. So take a look out for that. I'll see you guys on Monday. And everyone have a great rest of your weekend and a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone, for joining in. Savage, thank you so much for gifting memberships, like always. Really appreciate it, man. And the super chats, Thanks, everyone, for subscribing and tuning in. I will see you on Monday for our live stream. Cheers, guys. Have a great rest of your day.